Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to this press conference in the 27th Ward. So welcome to the 27th Ward. I'm Alderman Walter Burnett. We really appreciate the Painters Union. Painters Union is one of the unions that has a lot of diversity. They help to get a lot of people jobs, so we really appreciate them. We work very closely with them. You know, before I introduce the mayor, one thing that just comes to mind to me with this celebration today is $30,000. $30,000. $30,000. If you make $15 an hour, you work 40 hours a week, you make $30,000 a year. $30,000 is not chump change. You can work at McDonald's, make $30,000 a year. You can work at a grocery store, make $30,000 a year. You can have 4 family members in your home, and everybody can make $30,000. And you know what the funny thing is right now? There's a lot of places that's looking for people to work and pay $30,000 a year. So I want to commend everyone, all of the unions, all of the advocates who pushed for the $15 an hour. I'm glad that I was one of the aldermen who voted on it. I commend all of my colleagues. I really commend the mayor for pushing things up, making things happen faster. So without further ado, I don't want to steal her thunder. Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor of the city of Chicago, Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
So good afternoon, everyone. Oh, come on, you can do better than that. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
This is a happy day.
Yes, it is.
We are here in a House of Labor to announce great news for working men and women in the city. As of today, July 1st, the city of Chicago will be the only jurisdiction in the state that pays our workers $15 an hour. That is a momentous thing, and I will talk more about it, but first let me recognize the other leaders who are here. We've got our great champion of working class families and individuals and our small businesses, Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection Commissioner Rosa Escareno. We have Chicago's Director of Labor Standards, Andy Fox. I'm really pleased to see the Executive Director of the National Domestic Workers Alliance, Ajahn Poo, is here with us today. The Fight for 15, represented today by leaders Adriana Alvarez, Teresa Cervantes, Adriana Sanchez, and Kenya Campeno. National Alliance for Filipino Concerns member and CNA, Nerissa Algoretti. Thank you for being here. ATU Local 309 Secretary Treasurer, our own hardworking Deborah Lane. And ATU Local 309 members and Chicago Transit Authority Service Assistants, Casey Collins, Monique King, Trina Cobbs, and Beverly Harmon. So let's talk for a minute about how we got to this moment. Back in November of 2019, the City Council passed one of the most critical pieces of legislation to be introduced during my administration, an ordinance to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2021 for most workers. Importantly, this historic legislation made Chicago one of the few cities in the country to create a pathway to eliminate the sub-minimum wage for people with disabilities. We should be very proud of that fact as well. Now, of course, in November of 19, we didn't know anything about a pandemic, but we sure do now. And what we also know is that before then, and even exacerbated during the pandemic, far too many of our residents were struggling to make ends meet, despite having one or multiple jobs. And I know about this experience personally. Though my father worked 2 and sometimes 3 jobs, and my mother held a series of low-wage positions, including as a domestic worker, we still found challenges paying bills, keeping the lights on, and putting food on table. Unfortunately, a story that resonates with far too many of our workers. And make no mistake, my parents didn't have these low-wage jobs because they wanted to, or because they weren't qualified to do something else. Let's call it like we see it. In a small, segregated town that I grew up in, opportunities for Black and brown folks to attain upward mobility were few and far between. More often than not, the reality in our society still is racism, sexism, and ableism kept my parents and other people away from accomplishing their own dreams and moving up to better paying jobs. And it's those same injustices that to continue to keep far too many of our residents held back and their families trapped and struggling, even today. These childhood experiences have made me a fierce advocate for equity, justice, and inclusion that I am today. I see myself in the workers of this city struggling, fighting for dignity in the workplace, better paying jobs, and making sure that they can just provide a better place for their families. That was the struggle of my parents, and I want to make sure, as mayor, that I do everything that I can to ease the path for working families in this city. And this is even more urgent given what we've been through with COVID-19. As we're well aware, the pandemic has taken a devastating toll on our city's most vulnerable residents, especially those who are Black, brown, or a part of our immigrant and refugee communities. So it comes as no surprise that many of these residents have disproportionately been impacted by the pandemic. Not surprisingly, we're working for minimum wage jobs, working long hours, sometimes in unsafe conditions, and in some instances, unbelievably, having their wages stolen. Now, all of these things are absolutely unacceptable, pandemic or no. That's why, in addition to celebrating this historic enforcement of a $15 minimum wage here in Chicago and no other jurisdiction in our state, I'm also proud to stand here today, surrounded by other city officials, labor leaders, and worker advocacy groups to celebrate and highlight the package of worker protections that come along with it. And let me tell you about those. Effective today, workers at businesses with 21 or more employees will be guaranteed a minimum wage of $15 an hour. While workers at businesses with 4 to 20 employees will see their minimum wage rise to $14 an hour as part of a gradual move towards $15 an hour by 2023 for these very small businesses. This is mandatory. It's not a suggestion. It is the rights of workers to be paid fairly. The minimum wage in Chicago is now $15, meaning that businesses must pay this out to their employees or face a series of consequences, which will be enforced by Andy Fox and his team. On its own, raising the minimum wage will give a raise, are you ready for this? For over 400,000 workers in our city. And what this means in practical terms, aside from the money, is it helps create financial stability for our most vulnerable workers, most of whom work in a restaurant, fast food, retail, home health care, or child care industries. But we know that isn't enough. We've also put in protections to ensure that our workers get the wages that they are owed, especially by workers in industries with a reputation for exploitation. Domestic work is one such industry. Throughout the pandemic, our city's care workers have been very hard hit. And let's talk about who they are. Over 95% of them are women. The majority of them women of color and come from immigrant communities, which is why they've been historically and systematically exploited. And we rely on these folks to take care of our homes and take care of our loved ones. That's why we launched the campaign, Your Home is Somebody's Workplace, to remind employers that they must treat care workers with dignity, respect, and give them fair wages and benefits. Yet despite how hardworking these individuals are, they were paid below the minimum wage nor being provided with health care, and in many instances, no time off. To tackle these challenges head-on, my administration took on a number of actions. Passing Fair Work Week legislation to give lower wage workers and their families predictability in scheduling work for fairer conditions. If you don't know when you're working, you don't know what your cash flow is. You can't manage childcare. You can't manage your bills. You have to have fair scheduling and notice on when you're going to be able to work. And we made that the law in this city. We created the first ever wage theft ordinance to vest the city with authority to protect and recoup stolen wages for low-wage workers who experience the highest prevalence of wage theft. We also implemented some COVID protections for our workers. For example, the COVID anti-retaliation ordinances prohibiting employers from retaliating against employees for obeying a health order to quarantine, isolate, or take time off for getting vaccinated. Workers in this city now are protected if they follow the public health guidance related to COVID-19. And most recently, ladies and gentlemen, we passed the Shy Biz Strong package, which will increase the minimum wage for all domestic workers, no matter the size of their company, to $15 an hour on August 1st. Taken together, these bold initiatives will ensure that workers' rights and their safety are central components of our economic recovery coming out of this pandemic. It will also ensure that we are investing in our workers, who often are the most overlooked and exploited, bringing critical regulation and oversight to industries that have been built off the backs of unpaid, underpaid labor of Black, brown, and immigrant and refugee employees, and build stronger and more economically resilient companies. You've heard communities, you've heard me say this multiple times. We are poised for a very robust recovery in the city of Chicago. We're already seeing that in the data. We have the lowest unemployment rate of any major city in the country. We're seeing our hotels get filled up and return to 2019-like occupancy levels. We're seeing our restaurants full. We know what recovery looks like, and we are paving the way to do that. But on that journey, we cannot afford to leave anyone behind. That's why it's so critically important that we put these protections in place so all of our workers in every community, where they go home, where they raise their families, that they have the ability to participate in this recovery. Now, when the pandemic hit, I heard from a lot of employers who were saying, Mayor, it's a pandemic. We should slow down. Let's not do fair scheduling ordinance. Let's not raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Let's slow it down because we're being adversely impacted. Well, apparently they didn't know much about me. Because what I thought is, in a time of economic crisis, is the very time that we need to protect our workers, that we need to forge ahead with fair scheduling, fair wages, so that our workers are not the fodder of an economic meltdown caused by COVID-19. So we forged ahead. Because that's how we create a more equitable and inclusive economy that works for everyone and not just a select few. Now, I know that our businesses have struggled. Absolutely, we know that. We put in place a number of measures to support those businesses, over $100 million in loans and grants to small businesses of various sizes. Why? Because we wanted them to thrive, and if they thrive, their workers thrive. If those workers thrive, they spend money. They help keep the economy growing. When we're in an economic crisis, the government must act as a stimulus. What we don't do is retract our protections for workers and small businesses. We have to uplift the entire city, not just certain sectors. So now, with the implementation of this historic minimum wage ordinance, the Shy Biz Strong package, we will be able to take meaningful steps forward in accomplishing our goals once and for all. None of this landmark legislation would have been possible without the years of hard work from labor leaders and worker advocacy groups. So let me give a hearty thank you to the key organizations who supported our city's move to $15 a wage, $15 an hour. They are first and foremost the fight for 15. SCIU, Grassroots Collaborative, the Women's Law and Policy Project at Shriver, Restaurant Opportunity Center United, Chicago Federation of Labor, United Food and Commercial Workers, Brighton Park Neighborhood Council, and Arise Chicago. Now, there's others that I probably could have mentioned, but this village came together, united, and were determined to make this happen, and they deserve our hearty thanks. I also want to thank members of the City Council who are fierce advocates for the fight for 15, including Alderwoman Sophia King, Workforce Development Chairman Sue Sadletsky Garza, Finance Committee Chairman Scott Wagesback, and Budget and Government Operations Chairman Pat Dowell, and the rest of our aldermanic partners who, as the Alderman Burnett said, all of them came together understanding that this was an important thing to do for our workers to make sure that our communities were strong. And I want to thank all of our aldermanic partners who are influential in passing and implementing the 2019 ordinance. And for the worker protections portion of the Shy Biz Strong initiative, I want to give a shout out and thank you to the Protecting Workers Working Group, led by our great Commissioner Rosa Escareno. And last but not least, let me give a special thank you to Andy Fox, our Director of Labor Standards. Poor Andy, over the last 15 months, he thought his job was this. We've expanded it exponentially. Don't worry, Andy, we're bringing support to you, man. But I just want to say he's done a tremendous job. Thank you for your leadership. We're going to be relying upon you to make sure that the promises that we made to these workers are promises that are kept by all of our employers. Let me just close by saying this. As Walter said, $30,000, that's real dough. But we can do better. And we shouldn't be satisfied with that. We need to make sure that we're continuing to fight for workers so that they have a living wage, so that they can have savings, so that they can have home ownership, and so that they can pass wealth down to their children. That is what a robust, inclusive economy looks like. This is an important milestone, a great celebration for our city of Chicago, which distinguishes us from the rest of the state. But my friends, more work to do. Thank you very much for being here. And now I'd like to invite Ajahn Poo to come and say a few words.
Thank you so much, Mayor Lightfoot, for your leadership. It is truly an honor to stand with you on this historic day for Chicago's workers. Behind closed doors of homes across our city is a workforce of women and women of color whose work makes all other work possible. Chicago's nannies, home care workers, and house cleaners spend their days nurturing the human potential of our children, restoring order in our chaotic households, and ensuring our elders and loved ones with disabilities can live full lives with dignity, even as they become frail or ill. Throughout the pandemic, they worked as essential workers, as a lifeline to so many people who were among the most vulnerable to COVID-19. Despite the importance of this work, it is some of the most insecure and undervalued work in our economy, defined by poverty wages, unpredictable schedules, lack of job security, or basic benefits. And I think the pandemic helped all of us see how essential care is in our lives. As millions of women, especially women of color, were pushed out of the workforce due to caregiving challenges, we started to understand that care, from childcare to elder care, is the foundation of the economy. Just like roads and bridges, families, and especially women, rely on care to go to work. And yet for too long, the workers who provide that care that we rely upon have had to struggle to care for themselves and their own families doing this work. Until now. Thanks to the leadership of Mayor Lightfoot and our City Council, real action, not just applause, Not just banging pots and pans or recognition, but real action is being taken to ensure that domestic workers and all of our workers are protected and fully included in our vision for economic recovery and the future of this city. The mayor's Shy Biz Strong plans and the launch of Your Home is Someone's Workplace campaign demonstrate what it looks like to begin to value and secure our care workers as part of building a strong economy. In our great city, this group of workers who have faced exclusion from some of the most basic labor rights since the New Deal because of racism will now have contracts, protection from wage theft, and earn a minimum of $15 per hour for their essential work. On behalf of the National Domestic Workers Alliance, I want to thank you, Mayor Lightfoot, for your leadership and your support of our workforce. I also want to thank our affiliate organizations who are part of the Illinois Domestic Workers Coalition, Arise Chicago, AFIRE, Latino Union, and the Shriver Center for their hard work and leadership. And most importantly, thank you to the domestic workers and care workers of Chicago for the work you do every single day to care for our families, our homes, and our city. You are the foundation of our city and truly essential. And now it is my extraordinary honor to introduce a powerful leader for Chicago's working families, Commissioner Rosa Escareño.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosa Escareño, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, which oversees the Chicago Office of Labor Standards. And yes, joining me is Andy Fox, our Director of the Office of Labor Standards, and yes, his portfolio has magnified, and so we're behind you. I'm right there, Andy. But I am extremely proud to join the mayor and all of these advocates and partners in this great celebration as we move to a $15 minimum wage. This is really a momentous occasion, and we are the first Midwest city to guarantee our workers a $15 minimum wage, a milestone we are reaching a full 4 years quicker than the rest of the state of Illinois. We are here today to, thanks to the passage of the landmark minimum wage ordinance 2 years ago, but the work did not stop then, and it won't stop now as we have reached the $15 minimum wage hour today. This work continues. This accomplishment is a testament to the Mayor Lightfoot's unflagging commitment to put Chicago's workers first. Thanks to the many pro-worker efforts, workers on our great city, all the great workers in our city are able to benefit from the very strong worker protections, among the strongest in the country. Again, as Mayor has indicated, since 2019, we implemented the groundbreaking Fair Work Week ordinance. We launched and operationalized the Chicago Office of Labor Standards, which did not exist, which Andy leads. We passed 2 anti-retaliation ordinances to protect workers during COVID. And we just last week passed the Shy Biz Strong initiative, which includes a variety of important protections which have been mentioned. These efforts focus on building a stronger city post-pandemic so we can come back stronger. We are standing behind and uplifting all our most vulnerable workers, including the domestic workers that are susceptible to exploitation. The Office of Labor Standards will keep fighting for you, and in 2020, amidst the backdrop of a pandemic, we received 102 complaints regarding the minimum wage and cited 48 businesses with fines totaling $150,000, including working with those businesses to ensure that employees got restitution. with a guaranteed living wage, a fair schedule, new safeguards against wage theft, in addition to welcoming city protections. We're a welcoming city, as you know. Chicago is telling workers across the country that Chicago is a place where workers want to not only work, but where they want to move and live. These initiatives and the ongoing efforts, thank you, of our Office of Labor Standards, we are sending a strong message to Chicago's workers, is that the city has your back. We value you, and we will not stop fighting for you. So thank you. I'll just take a couple minutes to repeat some comments in Spanish. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Rosa Escareño y soy la comisionada del Departamento de Asuntos Comerciales y Protección al Consumidor, el cual administra la Oficina de Normas Laborales en Chicago. Me acompaña hoy Andy Fox, quien es el director latino, habla español y vive en Pilsen. Él es el director de la Oficina de Normas Laborales bajo el departamento y es un incansable defensor de los trabajadores de Chicago. Me orgullece unirme hoy al alcalde Lori Lightfoot y a todos las personas que están aquí para celebrar este cambio en el salario mínimo de $15 la hora. Esta es una ocasión histórica, ya que Chicago es la primera ciudad del Medio Oeste en garantizar a nuestros trabajadores un salario mínimo de $15. Este es un momento importante que estamos alcanzando 4 años más rápido que el resto del estado de Illinois. Esto pone a Chicago como una ciudad que apoya y aboga por el trabajador. A partir de hoy, a los trabajadores de empresas con 21 o más empleados se les garantiza un salario mínimo de $15 la hora, mientras que a los trabajadores de empresas con trabajadores menos de 20 empleados, su salario mínimo sube a $14 la hora y llegan a $15 la hora en el 2023. Mientras que el aumento del salario mínimo el aumento de salario mínimo dará aumento a más de 400,000 trabajadores que están viviendo en Chicago. Eso crea estabilidad financiera para nuestros trabajadores y sus familias. Y a partir del 1 de agosto, todos los trabajadores domésticos, sin importar el tamaño de la empresa, recibirán también el $15 la hora salario mínimo. En la ciudad de Chicago, trabajadores tienen un salario digno, garantizado, un horario justo, protecciones contra el robo de salarios, además de protecciones antirrepresaliales. Con estas pólizas apoyando a los trabajadores en Chicago, Chicago dice sí a los trabajadores, dice que sí los apoyamos y que sí tienen valor en esta ciudad. Estas iniciativas son los esfuerzos continuos de nuestra oficina bajo del alcalde Lori Lightfoot. Estamos aquí, gracias a todos, y ahora voy a presentar a la próxima persona. I'm going to introduce Adriana Alvarez for Fight for 15.
Thank you. Gracias. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Adriana Alvarez. I am a McDonald's worker, and I'm a leader in the Fight for 15 and a union. So today, we can all agree today is a great day. Today is a day that fast food workers, we have been pushing since 2012. Back in 2012, 200 fast food workers had the bravery to step off their job and said, enough, we deserve 15 an hour. We were called crazy. But we knew back then, and we know to this day, that we're worth more than the $7.25 federal minimum wage. When companies just like McDonald's made nearly $5 billion in profits last year, in the middle of a pandemic, I think we deserve to be paid enough to support our families through our hard work. Without us working there during a pandemic, they wouldn't have that $5 billion. In my case, I have a 9-year-old laying down over there somewhere. I should be able to support him, get him the milk that he needs, the cuties that he loves, which are crazy expensive. After years of fighting, after years of shouting on the streets and demanding a living wage, I'm at $15.85. That is a lot different than from $8.50 when I started. Being a single mom, Even now it's tough. But I can now afford basic things, you know, like I said, his milk or his fruit, a toy that he wants, some stuff that I just couldn't do before. Navy Pier was out of the question before. Now, like, I want to take him and enjoy everything. While we celebrate today, you know, that winning 15 it's here, Chicago, you know, we're the first city in Illinois, we know that the fight isn't over. It's only just begun. You know, like the alderman said, that's $30,000 a year. But that's not possible without a union. They could pay us $30 an hour, but they'll give us two hours a day and call it a day. We need that protection on the job. We need that voice on the job, not just to protect us from the hours. There's a lot of sexual harassment going on. There's a lot of just bad things going on at work, and we need a union. That is the fight. That's what's next. We're gonna fight for the union. And it doesn't matter how much, like I said, how much we make, because they'll just take our hours away. We need to know that when the next crisis, just like COVID hits, that we'll be respected, protected, and paid. This year revealed something that, you know, fast food workers, we already knew. We're essential. And it shouldn't take a pandemic for people to realize that we're essential. We should be treated that way. We fought and we won here in Chicago and for all Illinois. To thanks to support, of course. Obviously, we didn't go up there by ourselves. I wasn't me crazy. I'm representing 64 million people, a lot of who are still waiting for a raise. But now we need our government, from the Chicago City Hall to the White House, to defend our right to join together in a union. And I really hope this isn't the last time that, you know, fast food workers come up here and speak to celebrate things, obviously. We need leaders to support workers, to be on our side, not just today, but as we keep fighting for a better future for all fast food workers. Thank you, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, for inviting me here. Like I said, I do represent, it's not just me, I'm not just one crazy person. There's 64 million people out there who deserve a better living. A lot of them have families. And thank you for inviting me here on behalf of all fast food workers across Chicago who have fought so hard to win 15 an hour. And I know that on this historic day, the entire country is looking to Chicago. But without the Fight for 15, without 2012 and us being called crazy, there would be no July 1st Chicago celebrating. And I think that's so awesome and so empowering. And thank you everyone who has come out to support us. But we won't stop demanding a union, not just for every worker in Chicago, but for every single McDonald's worker, and also every worker across the country who deserves a livable wage and the right to form a union. Thank you. Our next speaker is now Casey Collins, a CTA worker.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cassie Collins. I am a customer service assistant at Chicago Transit Authority. I want to first thank Mayor Lightfoot. Thank you for allowing us to come here. I want to thank you for including public transit in this ordinance. It does make a difference, and we're glad that this was able to get passed. I want to thank City Council because of your hard work, we were able to get this put in motion. I would like to thank our union leaders, President Eric Dixon, as well as our Secretary Treasurer, Deborah Lane. Because of your leadership, we were able to come out here and get our voices heard. Thank you to my co-workers, Trina, Beverly, and Monique. Thank you all for your sacrifice. Thank you for your voices. Thank you for getting us heard as well. For all of those who devoted countless hours and put all your time into getting this ordinance passed, we appreciate you. We thank you. This minimum wage increase had to happen, and it has. When I first started this position, the pay was $12.40. It's a struggle living paycheck to paycheck. But it's even worse when you can't even afford the simple things such as rent, car payment, or even your household necessities. To see this increase now for those coming in, it's a great start. Even though we know there's more work to be done, this helps pave the way for more of my coworkers and others across the city of Chicago to be able to afford a more livable wage and raises the bar towards making our lives here at CTA a little easier. Again, I want to thank you guys for all your support and all of your help. I would like to now introduce Narissa Allegretti, Certified Nursing Assistant of Home Health Aid.
Magandang hapon, good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot. My name is Narissa Allegretti. I migrated here in early 2000, around the time when I turned 40 years old, and has been certified nursing assistant since 2004, starting with a pay of $7.50 per hour in one of the nursing homes. I've worked in different healthcare facilities like nursing homes, hospitals, assisted living, and in home care where we do a lot of domestic work. I really love my patients, and one of my most really enriching experience in life is to be working with the elderly. When I came here, it was like a shock for me because it's like a culture shock. Because in the Philippines, we hardly have nursing homes because our elderly stay with the family, and we all kind of like compete to have our elderly, our grandparents with us, like around the family or the clan. So it's kind of really enriching and heartwarming, and I really love all my patients. And my most favorite patients are the ones who are in hospice because they really needed us most during their last hours, and also the Alzheimer patients. I work in the hospital, like different floors, mainly the cardiac unit, but with the type of work, I myself have already like a lot of palpitation, working nights for several years, and so I transferred to home care, and sometimes I work live-in, as a live-in caregiver. So it's not really easy. There are times I hardly even reach with my home care $15 per hour. It's like there are like $10 per hour, 11, 12, sometimes 13. And I know that the home care agency usually receive like from $30 to $50 per hour from their client, but that's the only amount that we receive per hour. So this is really a milestone. Many people, many of us will benefit from this, and I thank the leadership of Mayor Lightfoot for making this happen. And on the other hand, it is also important for us to organize. So I myself is a volunteer organizer and leader of the National Alliance for Filipino Concerns, and I help organize my community and advocated for the rights of labor traffic victims and migrant workers. Again, I would like to add our voice of deep appreciation to our mayor in leading this ordinance protecting workers with a written contract requirements for employers and a path to $15 minimum wage, especially in the period of economic recovery from COVID-19. Again, many workers will benefit from this ordinance. And on the other hand, as a people of color, we are also concerned of social issues affecting us. It would be great if our mayor continued to help uplift our voices against anti-Asian hate crime and to continue to ensure more police accountability of Black and brown neighborhoods. My time here is not complete without thanking Dan Villar of the Chicago Federation of Labor, my fellow Filipino kababayan, for giving me the idea or like facilitating the invitation why I'm here. I'm so happy I arrived on time. I was doing community work in Detroit. I just arrived like an hour before this started, but I'm here. So I'm so happy. Mga kababayan, maligaya tayong lahat because of this. And again, in Filipino, I would say thank you. And in Filipino, it means maraming salamat. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out for such a joyous occasion, not only for unions, but for all workers in the city of Chicago. I am so overwhelmed right now because I understand what it means for people to say they know your worth and not show your worth. Today, Mayor Lightfoot, thank you for knowing our worth. You get it, you got it, and we thank you. To our president, newly elected President Eric Dixon, who never clips my wings and allow us to fly in our union, we want to thank you. To Cassie Collins, Monique King, to Beverly, to Trina, thank you all for taking this flight with us. The ATU, Amalgamated Transit Union, we represent 3,000 transit rail workers. Our customer service assistants are our lowest wage paying workers. I know most of you can be shocked to know that transit even have low wage workers, but they do. And I think that humbles all of us to let all of us know that if they can stand in the fight against all odds in a city that everybody smiles upon when they come and visit, but they don't know the sweat that came from the brows of the individuals that represent Chicago Transit Authority that comes out every day, rain, sleet, snow, or shine, to represent what Chicago really means. Thank you all, and I love you all. To the City Council, to Sophia King, to Sue Garza, and to Pat Dow, we want to thank them for always picking up the phone when I had to fuss and cuss because I didn't understand how this thing worked. But they walked me through it, they talked me through it. To Erica with SEIU, to CFL, Don Valer, and I just want to thank you all for allowing me to be nosy that day at CFL when you all were having a meeting. And I needed to find out why all of these people were galvanized in here and I wasn't in there. Thank you for inviting me in that room because you invited us in that room, you invited my transit workers to now have a voice and a choice and a seat at the table. And I want to thank you, CFL. To Rosa, and Andy, thank you all so much. Thank you for sitting in on the meetings and making sure that everything went smooth sailing so that it would be easy for the mayor to do what she promised us right before she became elected into mayor, that she was going to do for all working class, because she understood, because her father was a hard worker, what it meant to bring the meal to the table. Thank you all for reporting back to her, making sure that she understands how important this ordinance was to us. Now to the 1%ers. We need you to understand that workers want to be where they're appreciated, not where they're tolerated. The 15 is a step in the right direction here in Chicago, and I hope that other cities and state piggyback ride off of it, and not just because of the pandemic, but because you know your workers' worth. And the shoulders that you stand on and the backs that you stand on every day is that of working class people who just want to live like you live. As long as I have breath in my body, I will forever fight for the working class, because I sat in the same seat that Monique, that Trina, that Cassie, and that Beverly sit in. I sat there, and when I ran for office, I vowed that I would never, ever want any of our CTA workers to go through what I had to go through as a single mom working at a good paying wage job. Now our workers can at least see the skies a little bit, but we still have work to do. Today is a great day of celebration because this is what our foreparents have always fought for us to know our values, to know our worth in the workplace, and never let anyone talk us down because of the almighty dollar. Because at the end of the day, all of us are human. All of us breathe, we live, we move, and we have our being. Thank you, Chicago, for having the respect and the love for the working class. Thank you for the 15.
I don't think anything needs more to be said, but I do want to emphasize a couple points. I hope you heard in the passion that these workers love their work, are committed to their jobs, are committed to making a better way for themselves and their families. I also want to uplift a point that should be obvious, but I think is worth focusing on. Every single one of these workers that is here in this room are essential workers. Yes. They didn't have the luxury of teleworking, taking time off, because if they don't work, they don't get paid. If they don't get paid, they don't get fed. If they don't work, they don't get housing and taking care of their families. No days off, no sitting it out for these folks. They worked hard every single day. And I want to make sure we don't forget that piece. So with that, I'm happy to take your questions.
Two questions, Mary Ann.
Mayor, I'm just wondering, because the rest of the state is not following, even Cook County is not.
That's correct.
Might it be some kind of, some might call it a job killer if a business is just starting and they're looking around and say, wait, I'm going to start my business somewhere else because I don't want to pay the 15. Are you concerned?
Yeah, I hope that's not true, but that's why we've got to make sure that everybody comes to 15, because there is going to be forum shopping by some. Those aren't the kind of employers, candidly, that we want in the city of Chicago. We want employers, as Deborah said, who don't just tolerate workers, who appreciate the hard work of workers. And if you're making a decision, well, I don't want to be in Chicago because it's $15 an hour, I'll go over here because it's 10 or 12, you're not the kind of employer that we want. But fundamentally, to stop that from happening, everybody needs to come up to 15 at the same time, and we got to keep fighting for that to happen and accelerate what's going on in the rest of the state and the county.
Off topic, have you directed Superintendent Brown to attend tomorrow's city council meeting?
Oh, he'll be there, of course.
I've been told he might not.
No, he'll be there.
Gaynor Hall, WGN. On the flip side of Mary Ann's question, the fight for 15 started in 2012.
Yes.
Considering it's now 2021, is $15 enough, and will you work towards maybe boosting it higher?
Well, that's why I said, look, I think this is a day that we've got to celebrate. It's a tremendous milestone. I remember very vividly when the McDonald's workers went out on strike, and people are like, wait, fast food workers can strike? What's that about? But the fact of the matter is, sometimes the road and the journey is long, but we've gotten to a very important milestone, and I don't want to underestimate that. But yes, we need to keep fighting to make sure that wages can pay people a living wage. And $30,000 is real money, but as you heard from many of these workers, what they fear is yes, they get $15 an hour, but now they're only going to get 10 hours a week. So there's a lot more that we need to do to make sure that workers are protected in our city, and our state, and our country.
So will you work towards boosting it higher?
Say it again.
In the near future?
Our ordinance allows for it to go up, but yes, we've got to think about what really is a living wage in the city of Chicago, and we'll continue to work with our partners on that.
Off topic, Mayor, if you would, going back to David Brown.
Who are you? Wait, who are you?
I think my name might be Mud in some occasions.
Go ahead, Craig.
Thank you. I think you addressed it a little bit in your statement yesterday, but I'm hearing from some aldermen today they think this call for the hearing tomorrow is shenanigans. Others are saying we need accountability, we need to hear from the superintendent. What do you think this is really all about, and does he need to be accountable to the aldermen and provide details of his plan?
Well, first of all, he is always accountable to the entire city, to every resident. We had our very first summer safety briefing on April 8th. April 8th. Some people came, some people didn't. some of the people that signed and said, oh, we need accountability, we need to have a public forum. Some of those very same people never bothered to avail themselves of the various briefings that were given. We had another one on May 4th, joint meeting between public safety and health to talk about what I'll call the soft power elements of public safety. So, and then beyond that, every Monday, as you know, the superintendent does a stand-up. And in that stand-up, he accounts for what happened over the previous week and the previous weekend. In addition to that, there's things called CAPS meetings. There's things called reaching out to your commander. There's plenty of opportunities for aldermen who are genuinely concerned to get insight. At least 2 aldermen a week get a personal call from the superintendent just to check in. So do I think this is about public safety? No, I do not. Are we going to be there to answer questions so residents are assured? Absolutely we will. But let's face the facts here. This is political shenanigans, and you can figure out who's behind it. Burger King Ed is still alive and well, and he is messing around and trying to create chaos. Now, he can't do it he can't do it in a way that makes him public, but he's doing it through puppets and trying to orchestrate chaos. We've seen this picture show in 83, 84, 85, 86. But guess what? Having seen that nonsense, it's not happening again. So Burger King Ed and his minions, a guy who's an indicted criminal, we're not going to let him stand in the way of getting work done for the people of this city. You can be sure of that. So we'll be there. The superintendent will ask questions. We'll answer questions. He will give a presentation, not unlike what he's doing this afternoon. But we're not going to let people who just think that the city council is political theater get in the way of doing the work on behalf of our residents. Shame on them if they think that they can, because that's not going to happen.
Chicago has seen mass shootings the last 2 weekends. How confident are you in the plan that the superintendent has outlined to you, with obviously more details than he's making public, that this is something that may be preventable, if that's even possible?
Well, look, I think that, as you know, public safety is not flick a switch, and it's not just flood a particular area. What we're seeing is a manifestation, in my view, of decades of neglect in certain neighborhoods where young black and brown boys think that their only destiny is somebody's corner spot, early death, or jail. And so they're fighting for something because they don't see the alternatives. So the work that we have been about from the day that I became mayor is providing those other options, healthy, productive ways in which young people can really define their own lives and not have them characterized or designed for them by other forces that don't care about them, that are just going to use them up. And when they get arrested or when they get killed, it's next man up. That is a sad commentary of the decades of racism and systemic disinvestment in neighborhoods in black and brown Chicago. We're working hard to turn that around, but we're not going to be able to flick the switch. But what it's also indicative of, and you've heard me say this before because I believe it to be true, is the fact that for far too long in this country, we don't take seriously the flood of illegal firearms that are coming into cities like Chicago. Chicago Police Department, I believe, has taken close to 6,000 illegal firearms off the streets already this year. And we know that that's only the tip of the iceberg. Last year it was almost 12, double New York and LA. Why? Because we have federally licensed gun dealers who think it's okay to sell to criminals and straw purchasers, because we have lax in standards and enforcement in states like Indiana, and we have gun shops that line the city of Chicago and don't care about the carnage that is wreaking havoc on our streets every single day when they sell firearms to people that they know have ill intent. I've been beating this drum for 2+ years since I became mayor, and finally, we have a president in Washington, D.C. who gets it and understands it. I applaud President Biden and his administration for stepping up last week and announcing they are going to empower ATF to go after these bad gun dealers. That is going to be a breath of fresh air, and is going to save lives in the city of Chicago. I applaud the president for instituting multi-jurisdictional teams with ATF and other federal partners and local partners, one of which is going to be based here in Chicago. Why? Because that's going to save lives when we go after the gun trafficking. There's more that we can say, but I have confidence in our plan, but everybody who's part of the public safety ecosystem, from the prosecutors and the courts in particular. And please, Judge Evans, you don't need a task force to open up the criminal courts to trials in the city. It's been 15 months. Get the job done. Justice delayed is justice denied. And when we have murderers, and when we have people who tried to murder somebody but they missed out on the street, what does that say to the victims and to the witnesses? What it says to them is there's no justice for you. We have to have justice for the victims, the surviving family members, and it starts with the criminal courts stepping up and holding people accountable. And you can't do that when the courthouse doors are closed. So please, Judge Evans, open up the criminal courts to trials.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all.